Good evening, and welcome to another disgusting episode of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now here's your disparate and disambiguous host, Voice of Doom. Hello. Okay, I'm doing more diatribes these days. I hope I don't overexpose myself on the internet. Because you know how it is. When they see too much of you, they get tired of you. So I don't want to do that. But I keep getting new ideas for diatribes, and when I get one idea, something else crops up out of the blue, and I have to do something else. It's very hard. I was thinking about actually doing a retrospective on Uncle Sam, because I remember when we were in high school in Hawaii, of all places, we had American History Day. And that was the day we all dressed up as cowboys or colonials or whatever, even Native Americans, some people, believe it or not. And they had no Native American blood in them, and yet they still dressed in the garb. And everything else from history, a straw hat from, the 1910s, all this other stuff. Flappers, they do dances, we square dance, and celebrated the history of America. Didn't talk too much about all the bad things that were done. Nobody dressed up in the white sheet that went to flown, even in 1975. But you get the drift. Instead of being a character like most people, I said I wanted to be Uncle Sam to my mom, and she ran with it because she likes to make costumes. And she made me a really good Uncle Sam costume, and I got it in the paper because, I was the quintessential meme. But I was kind of wondering what happened to him. I haven't seen much of him lately, like in the last at least 5 years. Kind of faded into the dustbin of history. But I can't do a whole show about that. I could talk about his history and how it's been used for propaganda and everything else, but let's just leave it there. I might do it later if I get bored. And then, heard on the radio, BLM, Bureau of Land Management, might want to lease out their lands because they're just sitting around doing nothing. And the right-wingers were all commiserating because they said it'll all be sold to environmental groups so that they can do nothing with the land. Which makes sense if they are going to be, biased about it. It's like, we're going to lease out this land, but we're not going to do it to the highest bidder. We're just going to lease it out to people we like. So we're going to make money and still have the land used for nothing. So if that happens, that's not fair, but that would be part and parcel of what happens in what used to be this country in this day and age. You want to make economic opportunity, but in reality, you want to not have any production. I could do a whole show on that if I wanted to, but I can't because I heard about this cocaine business, and I'm going to go through a few possibilities. They found it, and they had to tell the press that they found it. So the bus throwing is starting. No matter where it came from, doesn't matter. They didn't have to report to the world that they found it on the White House grounds. They made it sound like they found it inside the White House in the West Wing. I guess they did. I don't know. They're blaming a tourist. Of course, they're going to blame one of the common clay, saved up all their money to go to D.C., only to be arrested and put away for life because you were at the wrong place at the wrong time. Don't be in D.C. on certain days, and don't be in the White House when we find powder. So blame the common clay. But there's other possibilities. Now let's just say, for instance, that the sun is going to just really pull out all the stops and really make it hard on his dad because my prognostication and my analysis on Sins of the Father a few days ago is bearing out sooner than I thought. Really wants to get the screws turned on the thumbs, leave some powder. Now, I was born at a time when I lived a teenager in the 70s and 80s, and a young, whatever, I'll get to young later. So I've had cocaine. I've had it in my house. It's very easy to hide. Unless you have bales of it, unless you have bricks. It's usually like a gram or 2 or 3. You can hide it in an envelope and hide it in plain sight. So unless people come in with dogs, I mean, come on. So they wanted to find it. Somebody wanted them to find it. And whether it be by the son who wants to sabotage Petri dish, or by the powers that be that are telling the Secret Service guys on the side, come over here, I'm going to talk in the office away from them. We're going to do this, and you're going to find this. So take that to the, take that as far as you want to take it. It's very obvious. But can I go into detail about that? No. Because I'm seeing another subject, and then it got me thinking, and then I can give you some information and lambaste a certain group, which I found irritating. Anna Kasparian has been raked over the coals by her cohorts and her lefty friends because she had the utter audacity to go against the narrative in any way, with a punctuation mark or a comma. You don't do that, and if you say one thing that doesn't go along with the given narrative, then we will start to pile up on you, and then what happens is that former lefty who made the mistake of saying something that might be on the right side suddenly gets torn apart, and then they realize I really was wrong. You people are vicious animals. And then they become righties, and they probably become incredible righties. But I was thinking about the Young Turks because I've seen that show and I don't see anything young about it, for one thing. The one guy looks pretty aged. And he's a real lefty, and I really don't like listening to anything he has to say. I've tried, but it always goes the same way. And they got a one-track mind. They're deranged. And they have TDS. Really bad. So one of the tribe in the Young Turks decided to actually say, the other side might actually have a point or two. I'm willing to look and be fair. Can't do that with the left. No. So we'll see what happens. It's actually becoming quite a story because it's kind of an internecine internet, conflict. Fun to watch. I thought about the Young Turks. And you realize that your show or podcast is not going to get off to a good start and is not going to be successful at the outset because you're going to think of a title. What's a title that means exciting, vibrant, youthful, progressive? How about Young Turks? That sounds good. Did you do the least amount of homework at all before you chose that title for your podcast? You won't be watching this, but you should, because let me explain something. The Young Turks was a insurgent person trying to take control of a situation or organization by force or political maneuver. That was the description of what a Young Turk is. A Young Turk was a group of progressive-minded people that wanted to get away from the Ottoman monarchy. They had a constitutional monarchy such as England for a few years, and then the king, or pasha, or whatever the hell he was called, threw it out, and then the Young Turks said, we want to go back to a constitutional monarchy. They were revolutionaries, and they wanted at least a system like England. Okay. What happened? Well, the Young Turks finally became a legitimate party called the Committee of Union and Progress. Sounds good, don't it? Sounds like some committees we have nowadays in what used to be America. And there was a bunch of Young Turks in there. Now, the Ottoman Empire, under the Pasha, or whatever they were called, killed Armenians in the 1890s because they considered them to be not part of the Turkish experience. They were a little bit kind of on the Russian side a bit, and you didn't really know where they were, and they had their own little area, and we don't want them to break off. So let's start killing them. And they did again in 1909. Now, World War II breaks out. 1914 to 1918, 1.2 million Armenians killed. The architect of that killing and torturing and slave labor, and dragging people out of their house if they were Armenian. They're not just the peasants, but intellectuals were dragged out of their house. Talat Pasha. Born 1874, died 1921. A member of the Committee of Union and Progress, CUP, started by the Young Turks. 1.2 million Armenians killed, basically by the Young Turks. Okay? Want more details? Yeah, I get more information from my graphic books. I learn more about everything, history, from these, and they're true. Just done in comic book form. Now, I'll just read this real quick because I have a few minutes. 1908, Turkey's Ottoman Empire, which dominated the Middle East for centuries, was tottering. A new generation of young Turks attempted to breathe new life into the empire, taking over in a bloodless coup. It's a simplistic way. It's much more complicated than that. Okay, now that the Sultan is gone, the constitution must be restored. Fine. Among the Young Turk brain trust, Talat Pasha. Okay. Goes on to talk about how the Ottoman Empire had been slaughtering Armenians earlier, but Talat Pasha proposed a simple solution to the Armenian question. Gentlemen, our agenda of Turkish nationalism requires eliminating the Armenian people in its entirety. There must be no further Armenians on this earth. Rounded up 600 Armenian intellectuals and had them executed. Slaughtered the poor that were out in the fields and the peasants. And he said, arrest all Armenian administrative personnel and massacre them. Armenians in army service are to be exterminated by military authorities. So Talat Pasha was a real piece of work, okay? He was a Young Turk, okay? Do I have to go on with this? It's very bloody, a lot of bludgeoning. Anyway, he ends up fleeing after World War I. See, the Turkish were with the Germans in World War I, okay? And Talat Pasha went to Germany and was allowed asylum there. And on March 15th, 1921, the Ides of March, he was shot in the back of the head by someone named Sagaman Tellurian. They found him not guilty. He was caught dead to rights, murdering Talat Pasha. And after he talked about being deported along with his family, one day out of nowhere, the thug guard smashed an axe into the teenage Tellurian's skull. By some miracle, he survived. When he awoke, he saw that they had massacred. When he awoke, he saw he had survived a massacre and worse. All of his father, mother, and family were slaughtered. He vowed revenge. He got revenge, shot him. Here's a statue of him in Fresno right now, dedicated to the person who shot and got rid of the monster. But the Armenian genocide remains almost forgotten, a fact which helped inspire the 20th century's other great horror. Schicklgruber, he said, "We need not fear the judgment of history, who, after all, speaks today of the extermination of Armenians." And to this day, there's people from the Republic of Turkey who deny that that ever happened. So there's your Young Turks for you. I hope you watch this and realize the error of your ways. And I hope Anna Kasparian gets more publicity, because I'll put her in my keywords and hope that somebody stumbles across my brilliance. You're welcome for doing that research for you. And good night.